So homework is due Wednesday. And today we're going to finish up some discussion about motions in the sky. Thanks for anyone who came on Thursday. Sorry that it was super shitty. Very windy. We were all really cold, just like huddling in the corner. But we didn't see anything. So if you didn't go, you missed it. You missed seeing nothing. And we even tried to point the telescopes, and they're just all the stars are doing this. So we didn't get to see anything fun, but that's fine. We'll have many more opportunities. And then today we are going to do a lab on the scale of the universe. And I forgot to bring fruit. My bad. I was going to let you eat fruit. So that's better for your body. And then we're going to walk outside. And then if you bring your stuff when you walk outside, you can just leave faster. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, right? Okay. So I'm going to keep you here till like 5:15. We'll take a small break and then we'll just jump right into the lab. If you decide instead that you just want to start the lab at 5:15, you're welcome to do that too, because it needs very little introduction. It's written out. Now I made it today. So if it's horrible, just tell me. Okay. What else is there? Any questions? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. You will do it with a partner. We'll do labs in groups of 2 usually. And you'll do someone, you'll work with someone for the lecture tutorial. We'll try and do this one. The scan came out horribly. I don't know. That's life. Anyone here not on Slack? Okay. You're definitely on Slack. I don't know if you're on Slack. So if you don't know does anyone not know what Slack is? Okay. So in the syllabus, there's a link. Join Slack. The link is still broken. Yeah. Okay, if that doesn't work, send me an email letting me know that you're not on. Because then I can just add you directly. As I tried to add everyone from their emails, but maybe your email, for whatever reason, isn't reflected. So Caesar is there in the back. Caesar will also have help sessions. So do us a favor, and if you haven't already, sign up for that when to meet, just to show your availability throughout the week. And he'll create some help sessions that are not the times that I'm available. And so that way you have a variety of choices. If you like Caesar's explanations more, you go see him more. Okay. Okay, what's that? Sun. Good. What else is that? Rocks. Rocks. Good. Sun and rocks. Okay, so we're really going to be talking about how the sky changes as the Earth moves, as it rotates. We're going to talk about why scientists challenge the geocentric model, what that geocentric model is, and hopefully we'll get to the point where we'll talk about what evidence Galileo proved to show that the hypothesis about geocentrism was incorrect. Right? Okay. We want to think about these two in the context of the scientific method. What we mean by that is, were they just deluded, or had they thought about this really hard and something was different, right? Was someone come down from on high to give them the right answers? Or is this something that happened naturally, so to speak? Naturally with conditions. Okay. So what would the night sky look like from the North Pole? I forgot to change these. All right. A, all of the stars would be circumpolar. B, no stars would be circumpolar. C, exactly the same as here. Or D, some stars would be circumpolar and some normal, but would be different stars than here. Think about this for a few seconds. When you're ready to vote, put your fist up. Let's vote on 3, 2, 1. Okay, I got a lot of 1s and 4s. Anyone want to support their argument?
Let's talk about all stars. I mean, like literally all around, because then that would make sense. You can't see south from north.
That's correct.
So-
Can't see south from west. I'm just talking about the one that you can see.
Oh, sorry.
What would the night sky look like to you? When you're in the north? Makes sense. Whoops. Okay, let's look at another one. So how does the sky look from different latitudes? We talked about that briefly. So from the North Pole, you're standing there, right? You look at the degrees of latitude and longitude. Here's the equator. And if you stand at the equator, all of the stars rise in the east, set in the west, and they all rise in the east and set in the west, right? Latitudes are positions north or south of the equator, whereas longitude are positions east and west of the prime meridian. Anyone know what the prime meridian is? The arbitrary line that they drew from the North Pole, the South Pole. It goes through England and France. So guess who drew it? The English and the French. Yes, of course, we would be the center of the world. So we'll put 0 through that. And no one has the nerve to tell them no. Even though it should probably go through the same routine. Okay. So let's ask a question. We're going to need to use our inference brains here. We're going to imagine that instead we're in the southern hemisphere. Okay, in a place called Tasmania, off the coast of Australia. Okay, which way will stars appear to circle the south celestial pole when looking south? Hit A, clockwise, B, counterclockwise, C, depends on the season, D, there is no south celestial pole, so there'll be no circumpolar stars. Okay, let's vote on 3, 2, 1. Okay, got some 1s, some 2s, and some 3s. Why don't you turn to your neighbor and see if you can convince them of your answer?
So,
Just because you're oriented is. Yeah. Like that picture we're looking at is I think it's circle, they were going this way. Now it's blocked. It was like they thought they.
yeah.
Okay, you ready to revote?
Now it's clockwise. Now we look at the south.
Alright, let's revote. Show me your fist when you're ready. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Some folks changed their minds. There's still not all agreement. If you're from one of A or B, what people I think have settled on, what would you choose here? How would you describe your argument?
You did a good job changing it.
Okay, what's your mind?
So I said, we're in the northern hemisphere,
Mm-hmm.
stars rise in the east, set in the west.
Mm-hmm.
So that would mean that the globe is spinning towards the east. So if you look up towards the North Pole, the stars would be going counterclockwise.
Okay, so you're looking towards the North Pole, so that's the north,
Yeah.
and they're rising in the east,
And so,
they're setting in the west.
yeah, stars will look like they're going counterclockwise. So
Okay.
when you're looking the other way.
So that's how we see it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we go to South Pole,
Now when you're looking this way.
go that
you're
way.
going the other way.
Now they still rise in the east and they still set in the west. They go this way, and that's clockwise. There you go. Okay. Cool. See, one thing that I like to do there is I use my whole body to make these inferences. Things. Impressive. Okay. Is this the North Pole?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Raise your hand if it's the North Pole. Okay. It's not.
Is that mountains?
Yeah, there's some mountains here. Are there mountains at the North Pole?
No.
No. Okay, so that's definitely a trick question. It's not the North Pole. Because at the North Pole is obviously Santa's workshop. That's it. Oh, that's the lights down here. Yeah, but what are the hills? There's no hills at Santa's workshop.
Maybe those are.
The elk with the body of the elves. Okay, so there's two reasons why this is not the North Pole. So you're certainly looking north. And I forget who said it couple weeks ago, maybe last week, here, yeah. Here there's Polaris, you can see Polaris with your eye. Once you start to see it, you'll be able to tell the difference in the South and the North Pole. But this is not at the North Pole, which is what the question was. Why is that?
We're facing it.
You're facing it, yeah, so it's low in the horizon. And recall what will happen is if you're at the horizon, this point here, this line, will dip down to there. Whereas if you're at the North Pole, where is this located? Right above you. Oh shit. So it turns out that this location here, this angle, is also the angle that you are located in latitude. There's a direct connection. So let's look back 1 second here. Right? If I'm here at the equator at 0 latitude, right? Then the North Celestial Pole is at 0 latitude. And as I follow Polaris, as I move up towards us here at 30, it's about 30 degrees above the horizon. Whereas if I were to go all the way to the North Pole, it'd be right overhead, 90 degrees. Make sense? This is how you navigate with the sky. Not that you're doing a lot of navigating, but if you had to. Okay. You remember one thing on a deserted island from the ASTR class. It's that. Okay, so what would the sky look like from the equator? All stars would be circumpolar, no stars would be circumpolar, exactly the same, or some stars would be normal, but other stars would be different. You know when you're ready to vote? Let's vote on 3, 2, 1. Okay, 2s and 4s here. Who want to describe their answer? I don't know, vibes, I guess. How would you answered 2s and 4s?
I don't know if you'd be able to see the North Star from the equator or not. I don't know if the Earth would block it.
Okay, so how does that work? Let's go back to this picture.
Oh, you probably wouldn't be able to see it.
Why?
There's latitude would be like 0.
Your latitude is 0, and so the North Pole is at what location?
The horizon.
The horizon. And is this exactly at the horizon? No, it's a little above the horizon. It makes little circles around the horizon. So you'd be hard, right? No one's saying like, oh, you go to the equator, it's super easy to see the North Pole, North Polar star, Polaris. But it'd be right at the horizon. Right at the bottom.
That counted circle pole?
No, because you wouldn't make a circle. So the pole itself, this location here, would be at the horizon. And so you can imagine that this would be flat Earth, right? Horizon. And all of these stars would go up and then down, but never in a circle. So all of your stars by definition are not circumpolar. And that would be looking north, and you'd have a totally different picture. Make sense? Okay. So you can do all of this astronomy yourself. You'll be here for 15 weeks, and you will notice that the sky will change. Different things will happen. The sun will move. We noticed that this morning, right? Woke us all up. We had to go to work. Okay, bummer. And throughout the year, so it's currently the 30th, January. So what season are we in?
Winter.
Winter. Okay, what's special about winter?
It's cold.
It's cold. Okay, we're going to talk about why it's cold a little bit later. But basically what's happening is that the pole of the Earth, North Pole of the Earth, completely in shadow, pointed away from the sun. You're all the sun, and the planet's rotating like this. Okay. And then later on, that pole is going to point towards the sun, and the North Pole will be completely illuminated. Okay, so it'll be warm. What's going to happen to the sun from our perspective here? We're not at the North Pole. So at the equator, might look different, might not. You might not notice it here. A subtle change. You know what that subtle change is?
The sun seems to be further up north.
The sun seems to be further, I wouldn't necessarily say north, but in the sky, right?
Yeah.
So right now it's low in the sky in altitude. And throughout the year, that altitude will get higher. So it's more overhead. And that's the transition that you'd see at the North Pole. So it's below the horizon during winter, and it's directly, can't be directly overhead, right? How high does it get at the North Pole? I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's about 23 and a half. Okay. The same orientation. Okay. But what I'd challenge you to do, you don't have to do this every day. You can do it every other day, whatever you want to do it. So if the sun, let's say you're an early bird, you can do this before the sunrise. Take a picture, roughly the same place in your house, looking at the same location. Sun will rise, and it'll rise with respect to different buildings, right? Or maybe you live next to a beautiful mountain range, okay? It'll rise in different places on that mountain range. It will move throughout the year. It'll move north, and then back south, and then north, and then back south, and then north, and then back south. It's moving up and down. Okay. Can you do this or not? All right. So we're talking about the sun moving every day. These are apparent annual motions. You're going to see this at night in particular. So, for example, we think about the sun as being the opposite direction to night. And when it's night here, the sun's on the other side. So, if I cover this, that's the same way of thinking about it. The sun appears to move along the zodiac a little bit each day. And the way you could check that is, okay, so let's say in the morning, you wake up and you see the sunrise. Okay, you mark where it is there. And then at night, after the sun is set, you wait until about midnight and you look in the same location. You say, what's right on the horizon? And you're gonna look due east. You're gonna see what's rising over the horizon. And maybe the first time you check, you're gonna see Taurus. And a month later, you're gonna see Gemini. And a month later, you're gonna see whatever's after Gemini. Okay. But throughout every month, you're gonna see different constellations are going to rise in that same location throughout the year. Okay. So that's referring to this idea of where would the sun be? You see the constellation, like the sun is in Taurus, they're rising, whatever they're called. This idea is if you could see through the sun, imagine you turned off the sun, you look at it right now, and you see what constellation is behind it. That is the definition of what constellation the sun is in. Okay. Same thing is true if you say Mercury's in Gatorade. You look at Mercury and you see what constellation it's in. right? Okay. You can use this in browser planetarium. There's also a planetarium software that's on the syllabus. They're really fun. They're free. You can just like fart around with them. You can change the date. You can change the location. You can do whatever you want. You can see how the sky will look. Okay. Yeah.
Do those get updated with stuff that's incoming, like the comment?
That one, no. If they're repetitive comments, yes. So when if they're too new, sometimes they can't upload the data fast enough.
So this one's new.
The what was it called? ZTF is very new. It's 2022. Yeah. Okay. So what does it look like? So I butchered this picture from the textbook, and I just flipped everything around. So this is the sun's apparent position in the zodiac. Ignore the actual numbers here because it's flipped to the picture. But what it looks like is if you're sitting here on the earth, looks like the sun goes around us. Everyone agrees about that. Relative to the background stars. So everyone agrees that the sun goes around us relative to the background stars, right? No, wrong. No, in fact, we go around the sun relative to the background stars. But these motions are identical. Okay? I mean, don't look too closely, okay? This path that the sun takes throughout the year, that's of course called the ecliptic, and we're going to learn a little bit more about today in the lecture tutorial. But, you know, from an observer here on Earth, and you're just looking at the path of the sun in the sky, these are identical, right? So if you only had these two pieces of information, you have to assume that in fact we're the center of the universe, right? That's the most logical explanation. Okay, that's all the data you have. What's that? Mercury good. Yeah. So that's an interesting concept. So what's that?
Greek letter.
Greek letters, good. Can anyone pronounce this word?
Can you?
I'm not Greek. It's planets. Word planets. I can't pronounce it in Greek. Pronounce it in English, kind of. So in fact, planets do something weird. They do not act like stars. And they were the first indication that something was wonky in our solar system. So, for example, we look around here, we see this is the way that the sun goes around the zodiac. Stars basically fixed in the background. They do not appear to be moving relative to each other. The sun does move relative to the stars. Okay. And then these weird stars, they're called the wandering stars, they appear to be moving compared to the background. This is how they knew planets were weird. Okay. Some of them move faster than the sun. Some of them move slower than the sun. Huh. Very strange. Very strange. Okay. They also don't twinkle. You might have heard that explanation if you came on Thursday. Okay, so what does it actually look like? Looks like that. You take a time lapse every single day, and you co-add that data, you stack it right on top of each other so the stars don't move, and the only thing that's moving is the planet. It looks like this. What's this planet?
Mars.
Mars, of course, because it's
Red.
red. Good, and we love Mars. Let's go. Okay, so this is the process, right? So it's walking along, and then all of a sudden you did a little loop-de-doo. And it keeps going. What the hell is that? It's in Gatorade. So what is that? The real word, not Gatorade.
Retrograde.
Retrograde. What is that word?
It looks like it's moving backwards.
Moving backwards. Retro is backwards. Grade is the motion. There's backwards motion. Okay? So when we say Mars is in retrograde, it's in this part of its loop. Moving backwards. Something weird happening here? Or is just like put on the brakes, hit the reverse, and then goes forward again?
Look back.
It looked back. It was like, oh, I'm getting chased. Gotta ditch this alien and keep going, right? Yeah, that's not what's happening at all. What's happening? An illusion. Okay, what do you mean by that?
So essentially the Earth is going faster than Mars. And the point it goes backwards is the point we pass Mars. Like going faster than it, and then so as soon as we like catch up to it, we get that like center point, right? But as soon as we go past, yeah. So as soon as we go past Mars, it'll start to go backwards, right?
Yeah, so this is the process of catching up to it, and then this is going again. We're going around like this, it's going slowly, we're going faster. Just like people on the highway. Right, when you're driving on the highway and you look out to your right hand side, and you see a car going backwards, you don't assume they're driving backwards, right? Hopefully. It's scary. Okay, so there are these weird planets, right? So there's Mercury and Venus, and Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These were the only planets they knew about in ancient times. Okay? You can't see any of the other ones without a telescope, and they didn't have telescopes. And so Mercury, they're all lined up. Oh, I should have replaced this with the picture I took. There's a picture that I took where Saturn is on the other side. There's no Mercury, but you get Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter all in a line. Pretty cool.
So one from a few months.
Yeah, this summer. We took those pictures at sunrise. It's pretty cool. Mercury, anyone know what the god is named after?
Messenger.
Messenger, because he's fast. And in fact, this is the fastest one. It moves much faster than the sun. Venus, beauty. Why is it beauty? It's the brightest star usually when Jupiter is not very close to us. So they're like, wow, that's a really beautiful evening star. You really only see it at sunrise and sunset or right after. And that's because it likes to hang out just way down here on the horizon. Never seems to be like, let's say it's midnight, you look up, you won't see Venus. Huh, weird. Mars, red, or everyone knows that. Jupiter, very bright. Big boy, he is the king. And at this time, you couldn't see Saturn's rings. They didn't know anything about it. They just called it second, whatever they're called. Okay. What? Oh, here, yeah. Okay, so this is the apparent motion of Mars in the sky. You can just replace sun, and it makes perfect sense, right? So it's going around us. All of the evidence points to it going around us. We might have to make some modifications for these weird curly cues, but we're good, right? All right. Okay, so let's break up into groups. Let's do this ecliptic one, and then we'll talk about where this daily motion type business gets at. Take a couple of these. One for every two people.
Right.
I don't know. Oh, hold on. So not one every three, one every two. Self-work. Make a new friend. Make a new friend. Don't just always be your same friend. Be sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. So what constellation will be? So new.
Right after New Year's, you know, train or Big River. And everyone was fine with him. What? And then for the shop, like, oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So really, I don't know anybody that's sick.
Yeah, you're in school.
Yeah. So then.
Oh, really?
Not sick, but also sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing. Sometimes people, they don't even have symptoms and they're sneezing on you and like, oh, great, now I'm like.
Well, I'll say we, that's what we don't want.
It's not.
I think it's
much of a. I'll give you like.
Yes. So the sun.
Oh, it's the prison.
What? I couldn't get prepared. I have to test it again. I don't know what I did wrong. I bet I should have read the instructions.
Yeah. Since the sign.
Both of those spots.
Pretty straightforward. When I go through this, I'm just gonna, you know, like. Some of the questions, what have them think about it, so if they think about it and they have a reasonable answer, correct, and then one or two of the right answer. For the most part, there's like one question. That every question for it's about this thing. This section of the grading is my favorite. If you take the lab, you probably get it, right? It's only on very specific labs where some people like not understand it.
And that's. Well,
The dotted line directly at like. South or like at the edge of it will be the sort of only south. Yeah, we're also.
Yeah.
Oh, this is out. It's, I just. The son's name on No, I know like that, but like.
So like how I.
So what? Yeah.
So,
The way it's, they makes it resolve. It makes it like.
someone like you pretty son. Oh, it's not here.
You're in the house.
Let's say, let's say you look here. It says, what are you looking for? Here. And you know, the conversation. Direction stuff. It says.
Nice fun a little bit.
Right.
So then just be- so let's say, not sit down and-
You're. Right here. Love our. Right. Yeah, so half of the. So now I have to go over there. You know, of course. So imagine you're. So look down.
We're just on the right, sun off the building east to west.
Oh.
12 hours, shift off the go there.
3 hours.
3 hours.
Wow. So the south, yes. Okay. So. You feel like we're all-
Yes, it's like. Not a good. It's like that's fine.
I know, I don't want.
Yeah.
It would be lower. Oh, what time is it?
Yeah, so.
Because like sunset runs lines like halfway.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about here.
On this one.
Oh, maybe. Let's have a-
Where would the sun be at night?
I thought straight up.
Yeah. It's so good.
Because it's- not really-
What is it? It's fine. It's like. Well, it's not.
The previous day.
Not just me, right? So this whole thing is being built. It's not fair. It might be. But that happened. This would be set by like.
Oh, are they? Sun has to.
Final.
That's right.
Like, this is the sun. And it says,
It's not just rotating.
so.
Because we are.
Talking about when it's been.
But I talk about something being in. It's something that is. Here's all the back. Right now.
But yeah, yeah. So it could be a thing, but it could like.
Earth on a daily basis. Versus annual motion.
Yeah.
You.
You don't wake up and see. And then just the sun rising. Or the moon, all the stars.
If that's like January first, that's like a whole month later.
But wake up saying the next night.
I would say I would be a little higher. Yeah.
So.
Um.
And then like, when it says something. Yeah.
Yeah. There.
I make.
Daily motion.
Yeah.
Obviously. It's not really.
It was wrong.
On a gated very well, but I you have to.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
I got the kind of date. Like, I go this one. Like, you want to.
Or in.
They have the same. And the only thing you ever see.
You're looking south. Have you?
Standing in the middle.
Okay, so.
Do you know?
So, south, is it at some point?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, yeah, you can imagine that you just go God line in this case. It's-
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you don't decide as well, we.
Yes. Okay, on this last.
What date would be okay?
So we were.
You want,
So.
you like?
Those are my-
I'll add the next day.
Those are my favorite, no, those are the water.
Okay, what date would be a Leo, like, other date? Oh, December, my grandma was December. I'll say like, I think June.
For our.
I guess.
How soon?
Like. I guess after like a little amount of sanity.
Well, are you ever?
Because in such a small amount of time, it's hard.
What's the-
Just not even-
the ISR?
At least a little bit,
Well, what's your?
like in a month.
Okay, let's give it about one more minute and then we'll just take a break, we'll go back to lecture, and then if we want to finish this up, we can do it in lab, okay? Great, credit for it. Right, so participate with it, like, obviously, you're like, okay, I really didn't have. So we can, yeah, like, oh, I want to scan. Okay, folks, just scan on it. Okay, folks, let's take a small pause here. And talk about some other stuff, put those brains down for a second, we'll finish it, okay? Okay. Let's talk about astronomy of the Greeks. So we talked about ancient astronomy, and we're gonna talk specifically about Greek astronomy, noting importantly, not the only type of astronomy. Okay, it's just a placeholder for a heliocentric argument. As you note here, these are not Greeks. They're Egyptian. You can tell because of the Sphinx. Yeah, this Sphinx here too as well. I don't know if those are actually Sphinx.
Oh, and the obelisk.
Yeah, and they have nice little obelisks. So people have been making observations of the sky for a long time. You mostly do that with these things called astrolabes. I don't know how they work. I can never ever use them. But essentially what you do is you like line up where a star is at the sky, you like make some markings, and then they would have these ridiculously detailed locations of all the stars on paper. I don't know. Okay. We're gonna talk about these types of scientists here. The Greeks, which were from like 600 to 200 AD, 600 BC to 200 AD, so about 1,000 years of thought. And that was like the reigning model for a long time. Notice those numbers are 1400s, 1500s essentially. So that's like yesterday in cosmological time, right? So if you think about all of, well, I guess all of your life is 2019 ish, right? So these years are very new, relatively speaking. And we're going to talk about what's necessary to go from here to here. Anyone heard of this one? Plato? This one? Aristotle. I don't know. This one? All right, and this one? No one pronounces the P? No, it's Ptolemy, yeah. This one? Copernicus? This one? This one? That one's a weird one, right? Okay, Newtown. Okay. So don't worry about the details. Don't care about the numbers. Doesn't matter if they're Greek. Don't worry about how to pronounce them. It's just fun. More important to think about their contributions to science. Okay. And also note that their contributions to science are mostly papered over by the people who get to write history. Okay. We're gonna keep that in mind. This guy, kind of a weirdo. This one is a big weirdo. We'll talk about that in a different lecture. Okay. So remember, we're thinking about the idealized scientific method, and in practice, it does not always happen like this. When you think about the scientific method, it's complicated. It doesn't follow this, right? It goes back and forth. But we're trying to hold to these ideals of a scientific method. And in particular, you make observations that force you to ask a question. You suggest a hypothesis to that question. Sometimes it's a mental model or a predictive model. And that prediction allows you to test it. So for example, if you said something about like, well, I believe based on my experience that in fact the sun goes around us because I do not feel like we're moving. Okay, so you say that I see the sun going around us. I don't think that we're moving. The hypothesis is that we're not moving. I'm going to make a prediction that we're not moving. It's not really good. Hard to test the absence of something, but you could say, you know, if we're moving, there would be ramifications like maybe there would be fluid problems because we're in a giant fluid, right? And of course there's the Coriolis force that makes hurricanes spin due to the rotation of the Earth. Maybe I don't know that. So that would make me have to revise my hypothesis. And I would say, well, maybe that's due to the ice wall at the edge of the planet that's forcing all that air in. And so then you go to the edge, you find there is no edge, so there is no ice wall. You're like, okay, well, I have to revise that hypothesis. Maybe we're rotating, but the sun definitely doesn't go around us. There's no way to possibly get around that, right? So this is the first models of nature that we think about in the geocentric model. Here at the middle is a beautiful picture of the Earth. Here. And you go out from the, I don't know if you can read this here. No, you can't read that, right? Can you read this one? Solus, very good. What about this one? Marches, which is Mars in no, in what language?
Oh,
Greek.
Rome.
Which is Latin. Good. And Jovis? Jupiter. Saturn.
Zodiac.
Yeah. So this is how they ordered the solar system: Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, celestial sphere. Cool. Okay, what's inside? What's this? Veneras?
Wow.
This one?
I did not read
I
that.
can't read that shit at all, but it's not great. What's this one? Man, Mars. Goodness. Right, because we saw definitely the moon. No one missed the moon. The moon very clearly is going around us. So there's evidence that in fact all these other things are going around us because the moon is clearly going around us, right? It must be. It has to be. That's very rational. The moon is certainly going around us, so therefore all of these other things must be going around us too. Right? That is the evidence that they're presented with. Okay. So they tried to think about what causes things like heat, what causes things like objects to remain at rest if you don't move them, right? So they wanted to say the Earth was the center of the universe. They also made some unusual arguments. They thought, well, heaven's definitely circles and spheres and perfect orbs. Because if it was created, then it was created perfectly. Right? So all of these spheres that you see here, they're spheres. Right? Perfect spheres. The moon, pretty circular, not like a square up there, not a big rectangular solid. Always shows the same face to us. They didn't really get into that, but they were like, hey, spheres up there, beautiful sphere, pretty. Right? Okay. And these spherical objects are moving on perfect circles on perfect sphere. Okay. Circle sphere. So enough times I said that? Okay.
No flat earth people.
Not then. That was disproven 6,000 years. Okay, so retrograde motion, this backwards motion. They're like, well, I knew about that right away. Doesn't take very much effort to see Mars going backward. And so they said, is that a problem? No. Super easy solution. Why didn't you think of it? You have circles? Just put a circle on that circle. It's easy. If you put a circle on the circle, you explain the motion. Okay, so here's the model. Here's the Earth at the center. We know that we're here. Here's, let's say, Mars. Mars is going around us, but it's also going around its own circle. So it goes on this beautiful little thing, and then because it gets to this edge of its own circle, then it looks like it loops around and it comes back. I did it. Easy. Right? And those are called Ptolemy's epicycles. So epi means upon, cycle is a circle, so circle on circle. He did it. Look how well that works. Well, let's go back. Look at how many years he was correct for. That's pretty good. If I could be correct for 1,200 years, I would easily sign up for that. This Ptolemaic model was the state of the art for 1,000 years. What changed? What changed? 1,000 years. What changed? Telescopes. Very good. Okay. So in fact, this works really well, and it explains the motions extremely well. Circles on circles. For the level of precision that they have. Okay. Sorry, I have to move all the way to these slides again. Okay, so it's still a geocentric model. You know, did they miss something? Well, we can look at this evidence now. We can ask these questions. Mercury and the sun having to be, or Mercury and Venus having to be close to the sun. That's easily explained, right? So this was explained by the epicycles of these planets. They're just linked to the sun. Obvious. There's a connection. Like, come on, work it through. This was probably an indication something was wrong. Now, interestingly enough, right? You go into E&M or you go into quantum mechanics and you're like, wow, this really doesn't make any sense. And you're like, I really hope this is wrong because I do not get it. So maybe that's how they felt. They were like, this is an overly complicated model. I don't really get how it works. And none of their students stood up and said, hey, y'all, this is bad, right? Maybe that'll find itself happening in science later, but I don't think so. Here is a different version of the retrograde motion. This one doesn't loop on itself. Ooh, scary. Zigzag. Those are okay. So interestingly enough, they considered but rejected the heliocentric model. They said, we don't believe that it's possible that we could be going around the sun. So there was little evidence to suggest that the Earth was not at the center of the universe. Why is that? Right? We don't feel like we're moving through the solar system. What would be evidence that you could take, let's say your advisor's name is Fulton, okay? And you want to challenge his theory. what would be the evidence that you would bring to him to show that we were moving? You don't have telescopes yet.
Direction of the stars.
Parallax, okay. Direction of the stars, what is that? Same? What does that word mean? Someone who didn't say it. Parallax. Okay, I'm moving, am I not? Okay, as I move, look at me relative to the background. I'm also looking at you relative to your background. All of you are changing. If I was moving, if I were the Earth and I were moving, what would the stars do? They'd all move, right? So boom, we did it. There's no way that we could be moving because the stars aren't moving. You're ruining the story time. Okay, so they had all the free time in the world and yet they still got it wrong. And of course, the answer is parallax. So hold your thumb in front of your face. You'll need this for today's lab as well. And try to get rid of my head. Okay? Okay. So, okay. All right. So I shouldn't see any of your eyes. Okay. So now I want you to open one eye and close the other. Whoa, the thumb moves around. What the hell? Did you see that? Pretty cool. Okay. I don't know why I put this up there. I should just say it. Okay. So they said, look, we can't see any of the stars moving. Sorry, we're not moving. If we're moving, everything will move. Instead, they're all in a fixed sphere far away. And they said, if we were moving, you would expect that a nearby star would move back and forth, right? From July to January. Only explanation. Okay. So, how would a star's parallax change as its distance from the Earth increased? Would A, the star's parallax increase as the star moved away from the Earth? And keep in mind, when I say parallax, it's the amount of shift. So this is the parallax shift, a certain number of degrees on the sky. And is it B, the shift does not change, independent? Or is it C, it would increase as the star moved? Oh my God, what did I write here? This should be backwards. Wait. Oh, it would increase as the star moved towards the Earth. Oh, jeez. Oh, I confused me. Okay, let's try this again. Star's parallax would increase as the star moved away from the Earth. It doesn't change, or it increases as it moves towards the Earth. You can use your hand if you need an explanation. So you have a star right now. Let me know when you're ready to vote. Vote on 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we got every answer. I'm going to turn to your partner and ask them what they got. You ready? Sure. You ready for your vote? Show me your fist. Vote on 3, 2, 1. Okay, got a lot of threes, some one, a two. Wants to describe what I should do with my hand into this. If I have a thumb, the thumb will be a nearby star. What should I do with this? Demonstrate which of these is correct. Yeah, a little bit closer, and then left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, then move it farther, left, right, left, right, left, right. Which one's better? Okay, well then do it against someone, left, right, left,
Tell me what happens.
left, right, left, right. Which one's larger? Close? Yeah. A lot closer, in fact, if I do this, disappears entirely, right? Okay, and if it was really far away, you would have large or small parallax shift? Small, okay, okay, now we're getting to where I want to go. Okay, so they said, the Greeks knew that the lack of observable parallax could only mean one of two things. One, they said either stars are so far away that it's too small to see with the naked eye, and they thought, no way, that's a stupid answer. But instead they said, well, the Earth doesn't orbit the sun, it is the center of the universe. Easy. All good.
Have the right answer.
They said
They were
no.
just like, nah.
It's not so easy though, right? So this is the problem, is that making this measurement wouldn't be possible until you had to have better technology for anyone to believe that the stars were moving. Because you look out there day to day, you will not see stars moving. Naked eye astronomy for thousands of years would not show you parallax. Only telescope. Okay. Yeah, we can do a little bit more. So was Ptolemy's approach following the correct scientific method? Raise your hand if you think yes. 2 for yes. Raise your hand for no. Raise your hand for I don't want to answer. There we go. Okay, okay. There's no harm to answering wrong. It's okay. Okay. So what was Ptolemy doing? So he was using the data available to him at the time, making a model and trying to test it against the observation, right? Is that the scientific method? Yeah. Did he have good data?
No.
He needed better data, but I'm sure he could have done it. It was real brilliant. It was a circlement, right? Okay, so that leads us to Copernicus or the heliocentric revolution. And it's very simple. Okay, all you got to do is just copy and paste. So you copy this one over, and then you just change the sun from here to here, and from here to Earth from here to here, right? That's easy. You want to go from here to here? You just convert them. These two don't even move. Mercury's still the closest, then Venus. That's Mercury here, Venus, Earth or Taurus, Terras, and then the moon. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then the celestial sphere. And they said fixed. It's a fixed sphere. Okay. So why didn't Copernicus's model? All I did was just change the locations here. Still perfect circles. Why didn't it accurately predict the positions of the planets? Is it A, he had the order of the planets wrong? B, he had the distance to each of the planets slightly off? C, his model still had Earth at the center of the solar system? D, he used perfect circles for the orbits of the planets? E, Copernicus' model was accurate because he had used a model where the sun was at the center. Let me know when you're ready. Vote on 3, 2, 1. All right, I guess everyone knows this. It's because of the circles. They're not circles. They're not squares. They're not squares. Okay. So Copernicus was close. He liked the idea of the heliocentric model. He liked it. But he wanted circles. He was pro circle. Okay. And it was shitty. It wasn't better at predicting the locations of all the other planets. It wasn't better than Ptolemy, at least. He was trying to play with some ideas. Okay. And so this guy here, this is an astrolabe. He's making like super complicated measurements. He's the best naked eye astronomer of all time. Right? He keeps super detailed records, beautifully detailed records, more accurate measurements than ever before using all these new technologies. We don't have the telescope yet, so we don't have the parallax section. Not getting it. But we're trying to match the planets, the motion of the planets, to a model that works to really, really high accuracy. Okay. And Ptolemy's model is starting to show problems. You have to use more and more circles on circles in order to get it right. By the time you have 4 or 5 circles, it doesn't feel sciencey anymore. Someone's like, is there a better explanation? Okay. So this guy here, he's a funny guy too. We can talk about stories about him in the break. He gives his worst data to this guy. He says, Mars is giving me absolutely a nightmare. I hate this planet. I can't make it work with all of my circles. And I don't know what to do. Just take this and go away. Because this guy kept bugging him for his data. He's like, I'll give you the shittiest data I have. Good luck. Okay? And he did. But he fit it with something called an ellipse. Now, ellipse is a squished circle. I think of it as like an elephant sitting on a circle. Ellipse. And this allowed him to perfectly match the data. Weird. That's how it is in nature. It's actually okay. Let's talk about these ones here really quickly. This is a circle. This is a very eccentric ellipse, highly eccentric ellipse. Eccentricity is just how squished it is. Okay. And if it was like this, if the solar system had eccentricities of 0.7, I think that'd be fairly obvious, right? That the orbits were not circular. But they weren't. They were more like this. In fact, these are two. One of them is a perfect circle, and one of them is an orbit. Raise your left or your right hand to tell me which one is the Earth's orbit and which one is which one is the Earth's orbit with your left or right hand? And now look around. How much money would you put on your guess? 0. Double. Double it and give it to the next student? Okay. So which one is it? Right. Right. Now you'll never know.
That's
Just
not nice.
kidding. Okay, so let's take a break here. It's a good plan here. You gotta come back after the break. Okay.
I guess he was thinking.
Okay, so we'll take a bio break here. If you need to get snacks or anything, that's good. If you want to jump right into the lab, we can also do that. But I recommend taking 5 minutes to just like stretch, get your brain good. Okay? Yes, we will go outside, assuming that it's not raining. You don't have to, but it's nice. Imagine a life where you don't go outside. You have to walk your professor sometimes, you know? Not necessarily. Whenever the lab is done, you're done. So you crush the lab, you're good.